Easter Island. Just saying the name conjures up these images of mystery, right? A lost civilization and this silent, staring army of stone giants. But what if the story we've all heard about this incredible place is just plain wrong? For generations, these massive statues, the Moai, have been one of the world's most recognizable and, frankly, most enduring enigmas. They're the silent witnesses to the history of the Rapa Nui people. The story you've probably heard is a really dark one, a cautionary tale. But is it the true story? Well, let's find out. To really get what happened here, you first have to understand just how incredibly isolated Rapa Nui is. This wasn't just an island. For the people who first lived there, it was their entire world. And to put that into perspective, it's over 2,000 kilometers from the next closest inhabited island. That's a huge stretch of empty ocean. And this extreme remoteness, it's absolutely key to understanding its unique culture and its tragic fate. Okay, so let's get into the version of the Rapa Nui story that has become famous all over the world. It's a really compelling, super dramatic narrative about a society that basically destroyed itself. This whole idea even has a name, ecocide. The theory goes that the Rapa Nui people, in their obsession and ambition, actually engineered their own collapse long before any Europeans ever showed up. So, this is how that popular theory goes. It all starts with this obsession, right? Building more and more moai. This leads them to cut down all the trees for transport. But with no trees, the soil erodes, their crops fail, and they can't even build canoes to go fishing. And the end result? Starvation, brutal, endless warfare, and even cannibalism. Now, a huge piece of this ecocide theory is this idea of a massive population crash. The thinking is that the island once supported 15,000 people, but by the time the first Europeans arrived in 1722, that number had cratered to just 2,000. It's a really powerful story of self-destruction. But here's where it gets really interesting. What happens when we stop just telling the story and start looking at the actual physical evidence? Because when archaeologists dig into the soil of Rapa Nui, a very, very different story starts to come out. Yeah, all the recent studies, we're talking archaeology, anthropology, even bone analysis, they all paint a picture that completely contradicts that old ecocide story. This idea of a society just tearing itself apart before outsiders ever showed up, it just doesn't seem to hold up. Just look at this comparison. The popular story says there was rampant warfare and total societal collapse. But the archaeological record, it shows very little evidence of deadly violence, no clear proof of cannibalism, and, this is the big one, it suggests the population was actually stable, maybe even growing, right up until Europeans made contact. Let's dig into that evidence a bit more. Studies of skeletons show that only about 2.5% of skulls have injuries from violence. Those pointy obsidian spearheads, the ma'ata, they show wear and tear consistent with being used as farm tools, not weapons. And you'd expect a society at war to build forts, right? Well, there are no fortifications on the island. As for the deforestation, it happened, sure, but it was a slow process to create productive farmland that supported a growing population. So if the Rapa Nui didn't destroy themselves, what on earth happened? Well, all the evidence points to a catastrophe that wasn't self-inflicted at all. It was a catastrophe that arrived from across the sea. The real collapse was shockingly fast, and it was brutal. It all started in the 1860s. In 1862, Peruvian slave traders kidnapped about half the island's population, including their leaders and cultural elders. When a few survivors were finally returned, they brought smallpox with them, which just ripped through the island. A few years after that, tuberculosis hit, killing a quarter of the people who were left. And this is the number that just tells the whole story. After just a decade of slave raids and imported diseases, the Rapa Nui population, which had been stable for centuries, was down to just 111 people. Just think about that. Over 97% of the population was gone in less than 10 years. And with them went generations of cultural knowledge, their history, even the ability to read their own written language. That was the real collapse. So what's the real lesson here? Well, the story of Rapa Nui is not at all what we thought it was. It's really time we reframe this entire narrative. For decades, the story has been one of ecocide, this convenient cautionary tale about a society that failed. But the evidence, it tells a much darker story. the slave raids, the epidemics, the colonialism. It's all well documented. This wasn't a story of self-destruction. It was a story of a resilient, ingenious society that was almost completely wiped out by outside forces. You see, the real story of Rapa Nui isn't about failure. It's about a thriving culture that was so tragically undone. It's a story of incredible human resilience in the face of an imaginable catastrophe. And it really makes you wonder, how many other stories from history have we gotten wrong? How many are just waiting for the real evidence to finally tell the truth?